Hello, everybody. This is the Alchemy of Life podcast, and I have a very special guest today. Her name is Laura, and she is an embodiment teacher. She is leading workshops. She is working with people one on one. She is a facilitator in ISTA, the International School of Temple Arts. He's a tantrika, and I have a feeling we have a lot of interesting things to discuss today on embodiment, intimacy, the sacredness in our body, and that we can discover with each other, and so on. Um, yeah, I'm excited for this. How are you doing today, Laura?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you. I just wanna maybe rectify a little bit. I'm not a facilitator of ISTA, I'm an apprentice facilitator. I don't want to have like troubles with ISTA. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I'm familiar with how the organization works. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Saw that you have facilitated some workshops in ISTA. So,
Yeah.
yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. Well, thank you
Um,
for inviting me. And it's true that we don't really know each other, but I'm sure that we have a lot in common and a lot to maybe share with others. Mm.
Beautiful. So, I don't know, maybe start from where it all started for you. What brought you
Where
to
it all
where you're at doing this beautiful work with people?
Well, I don't come from there, and I feel like many of us probably don't really come from embodiment, except when they were really young. But very quickly, we lost that connection maybe to the body and to the intuition and to the wisdom of the body. And as everyone, I mean, as many people, I went a lot into my mind and academic studies. I was a psychologist for some years. So it was all about the mind, and I was kind of protected by this desk in between me and my client at the time. But it all started for me with a sickness, actually, with a cancer when I was 18. And, that actually obliged me to go and check within, not just with my mind, but starting to understand why and how this body works and what it is saying basically, and how to discover the codes of the body. So after psychology, after a decade of psychology, I start traveling like everyone probably, and Saturn return at 27, just leave everything around and just start the path, of like not knowing what to discover, but knowing that there is something way bigger that is awaiting. And yeah, and I discovered a tantric school. I stayed there for years, and that was the dominoes basically. Yeah.
You said like everyone, but I would beg to differ that not everyone are going on a path. I mean, everybody are going on a path. I don't know if everybody are consciously going out there and seeking answers and seeking, to open up more. A lot of people are kind of like stuck where it's comfortable for them. And
Mm.
yeah, I feel that term embodiment has been thrown around a lot as of late, but I think in specifically in this conversation, it meant going back to the body, the innate intelligence that the body holds, that permeates through the entire universe and makes your body as well, which has nothing to do with what you can capture with your intellect. When you realize that, it does put you on a path. Was this in India that you discovered Tantra?
Yeah, I did. Like I was like, and actually I was in Thailand. I mean, in India, I just started to do all kind of meditation and yoga things, but then it was in Thailand that I discovered Tantra, and then I was just going between India and Thailand constantly.
In Kopangan, yeah?
But yeah, yes.
Yeah, I just actually lived in Kopangan for the past almost 2 years.
Mm.
Just left to Berlin, which is where I am now. I've been to Kopangan for many years, never been in the Tantra circles much, but it's impossible to ignore the tantric aura that this island have. Maybe you wanna give the audience a little bit of an introduction of what is even Tantra from your perspective, from your experience.
Yeah, I'll say more about my experience, because even though, I've been trained in like classical tantra for many years, I feel like I've taken myself out of any kind of I don't even consider myself like a tantrika or a tantric teacher anymore. It's like I just take myself out away of every kind of stigma or dogma. So just for me, Tantra is just like an awareness that everything which is inside is outside, and everything that is outside is inside. So for me, it's like a way of living that is an inclusive reality that is not separated from anything else. But for many years, for me, that has been just like a mental concept, even though I wanted to believe that through my practices, I was aware of that. But actually, I feel like it's just in the last years that really I'm starting to have an embodied experience of it, because it's not just like, oh, we all one until you fuck with me and I'm angry with you, and like it creates separation, you know. It's like, okay, how far can you how far can you bring that in your daily life? Every time that actually something disturbs you, everything you criticize, everything you judge, everything that you feel separated from you, like how can you recall those places in you, even though they're not maybe expressed, maybe they're suppressed, maybe you feel like you would never be that person or you'd never be that quality ever again, but how can you bring that force all the time into your inclusive awareness of yourself? So it's a matter of perspective for me, you know, like the path of Tantra, if you want to call it, or even just like awareness in general, is for me a path of bringing a deeper awareness from your center of gravity that is only you or your individualized self. It's starting to bring a bigger perspective to maybe what is what is your soul, what is the soul of the world, what is the soul of the earth, what is the soul of this universe, and like starting to vibrate from that place.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, there is this, I asked because there is this misconception that Tantra has something to do with sex necessarily. And that's because we, like many other spiritual practices, we have westernized the origins of Tantra, which is Shaivism Tantra and other lineages, which actually had nothing even mentioning sex in their original transcripts. And really the origins, which also touches lovemaking, because lovemaking is part of this Maya that we are living and is part of our life. So Tantra also has to do with sexuality. It's not about that. It's actually about one's own um, relationship with the divinity in all, you know, the ability to recognize divine in everything, the sacredness in the day-to-day, in the moment-to-moment experience, in the bodily experience, which a lot of lineages that came before that were all about this renunciation, like let's go to the mountain, become a renunciate, that's like the highest spiritual goal. The tantrics came and said, hey, what about all of that? I don't know. Maybe we are here in this body, in this experience, in this life, going through the motions, doing work, raising families, you know, love making, and all of these things. And that is our path. That is how we find divinity. That is how we find, you know, God and beauty and all that is sacred through that experience, and finding that non-dual space in which everything is spirit, everything is sacred, at least as far as I understood. So I think it's important when speaking about Tantra to make this distinction, because even people who study Tantra, which I met in Kopangan and other places, don't really know this distinction. They really have this idea that Tantra is somehow has to do with this Kama Sutra, Indian sex thing, which is not really the case. Yeah, so
Well, I
tell
would
me a
even
bit.
add to this that actually you know, like the sexual part of Tantra was actually exclusive to some high initiates um, back in the days. So it's like, I feel like the fact that we have taken just that part and make it what is the Neo Tantra today, and what is almost the only interest of many people in those communities, I feel like that became also the curse of our generation. Even though like I feel like our generation has like it's beautiful, because even though you called me out on the fact that not everyone is actually seeking for path or for spiritual path, I feel like because it became so much more mainstream, somehow there is so much more people that at least ask themselves some questions that maybe before they wouldn't. And I feel like that's the good side of it. But then I feel like the curse of it is that we have access to some practices and some knowledge that were usually just exclusive for people who have already a level of initiation before. Therefore, I feel like it could become such a trap. And that's why I kind of take myself away from that field, which I'm like, I'm not a tantric teacher. Don't associate me with that, because for me, like, it's like, it's always like the one that speaks the most about it is the one that have the less about it. So it feels like about that. Like if tantra is really limited to the sexuality and how to become a better lover and how to have more egoistic cocks, I'm not interested in that at all.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Mm,
Yeah, I've lived as a person who, work educating people around intimacy, communication, and all that stuff, which I didn't came from Tantra. I never studied it besides reading old scriptures and books and things like that. But
mm,
more of the history of and origins of Shaivism Tantra, and less about like the workshop, westernized, let me heal you with my cock type of Tantra, which I saw happening all around me in Copenhagen, which really always like feeling like, I don't know, it doesn't feel to me like a path that is, pure and effective and beautiful and, inclusive. And I don't know, something really didn't resonate with me. And I only realized what was it when I started actually investigating what Tantra actually is and hearing from people who
mm,
are initiated by tantric teachers and their perspective on that, which has nothing to do. And usually these people don't even involve themselves in the circles, in the same circles that you and I are speaking about. In any
mm,
case, so yeah, this is just important to emphasize for anyone who is interested in, the tantric teachings and tantric lineage. Be well, go to the origins, figure out what it actually means, what it means to your day-to-day life, to your experience in this life. And then, love making experience will be enhanced dramatically. How you connect with other people will be enhanced dramatically if your relationship with your sensual life, with the things that you can sense with your senses, becomes more sacred, becomes more divine. Everything amplified as well. So it's not just this narrow focus on sexuality. You mentioned embodiment a lot, and
mm.
well, this word is being thrown a lot. What is embodiment for you? Going back to the body, what does it mean, and how do you facilitate such experience for people?
Mm. What is embodiment? Um, First of all, I'm very grateful for that word in English because in Italian and in French, which are my two main languages, there is not this word. So it also shows that this word has been like birthing with almost a new, I want to call it movement, but it's not so much of a movement. It's maybe more an awareness of people that are descending more and more into the awareness of like what is this living organism, um, before trying to understand the rest of the world. So for me, embodiment, it's almost like a descending path of going inward, of like allowing the physical body to be the real representation, the real shape of what is going on inside. So there's no filters anymore. Like I remember when I was younger, like I even see pictures of me like ages ago, and I'm like, wow, like there's no expression, like there's nothing that is showing actually the depth of what I was living inside. So for me, like embodiment is like it's almost a reflection of life through your body. It's like allowing life to be expressed and manifest through your body. It's like it's almost the opposite of what you were speaking about like almost the ascending path that used to neglect the body, like renounce to the body because the body was seen as sinful. And so I want to almost speak about like the descending and the ascending path, because it's almost like two spiritual currents that have been fighting against each other. It's like whatever descended in the body was sinful. It's almost like the witch hunting craft. It's like every person, which was a lot represented by women at the time, like, because women are more in touch with their body somehow. It was like demonized almost, this past, and now it's the opposite. Like, we're rising again from the body, and starting to inhabit the body first before before like preaching something else outside of us. So I don't know if that actually answers your question, but that's where I went. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I feel embodiment, it's the same thing. Maybe I'm just gonna speak about it from my own perspective, and then it will
Yeah.
create even more, deeper clarity. Um, we have this illusion, this sense that we live our lives, that we are in control. When in fact, not just from a spiritual perspective, but really, if you observe reality, the scale, the part of reality which is conscious, our consciousness, is just a blip on an infinite timeline, on an infinite scale of, from the tiniest particle to the fucking biggest, you know, physical phenomena, or physical law. And in between, there is a moment of consciousness, of awareness there, that is perceiving a very limited perspective of what is. Yet the body that we live in, the body that this consciousness is living within, is a product of that bigger picture, is that product of that scale, and not something that you control and you constantly manifest. Like, you look at your child and you're like, oh, this is my child. Is it though? It's like a product of 13 billion years of evolution, this beautiful process just unfolding. And that body, which the descendants are kind of like, distancing themselves from. If you want to get higher spiritually, you distance yourself from the body. You, even from the Judaism culture that I came from, and many other religions, and other Hindu lineages, and Buddhism, you go far from your body, and you like starve it and fast and go to the mountains and just like, you know refrain yourself from sexual activities and so on and so forth, to get more spiritual, to get higher. But there is something so innately intelligent and beautiful in this body. It's literally a product of this 13 billion years of evolution happening and unfolding exactly the way it is, making this magnificent machine, making out of genetic codes, DNA, RNA, molecules, particles, organs, everything working in synchronicity. And we have this illusion that we are in control of the happenings of this body, when in fact this is just happening, and then our brain is kind of like explaining what is going on. Like, when something is happening, your instinct is immediate, and then our mind is usually starting to have an explanation of why that happened you know and so it's the other way around. And I feel that embodiment is dropping the mind, dropping the thinking mind, this illusion that we are in control, and letting our body, letting our this innate intelligence that permeate through the entire process and through our body to do its job, which it knows what to do. And so you can do it through dance, through movement, through singing, through whatever it is, but you go back to that body. And I feel that specifically when it comes to sexuality and intimacy and the worlds that we are involved in, a lot of people, especially men who are, but women as well, people are disconnected from their bodies, disconnected from that intelligence, and they are spending so much of the time here. I'm like, oh, am I doing it right? Should I do this? Should I do this? Will he like me? Will we be in this relationship or that relationship? All kind of expectations and programs and narratives and stories and whatnot, and shame and guilt and everything that we bring with us. Embodiment is the continuous process of letting go of as much as possible of that, so we can let the body, the innate intelligence within it, the innate sacredness and divinity within it, do its feeding, do its work
Mm,
while this mind is just empty and blissful.
mm.
Um, at least this is my understanding of the word embodiment, or at least my personal experience of it. Um, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I would just maybe add, because like it would feel like it's just a meditation process, and I feel like a lot of sitting meditation, this is what they try to, like, emptying their mind. But there's such a difference in actually then inhabiting the body. It's not just emptying the mind, but it's really allowing the consciousness to start awaken every molecule of your body, so that then your body, and it's freaking out a lot of people in many of my sessions. Like, when your body takes over, you might have a moment of terror because it's this lack of control, and the body start moving in its own way, start making the noises that it wants, and it almost feel like someone else is commanding you. And this someone else is nothing else than life itself, but it's yeah, so that's maybe like the only little tweak that I would say. It's like it's
I
not
mean, yeah, I
just
was thinking
emptying the
about
mind.
dance
Yeah,
and movement and intimacy. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I was referring
Mm,
less to the meditation aspect of it and like sitting calmly and quieting the mind, but rather moving the body or letting the body move instead of having this, where should I move my body? For example, in dance, like you dance, you move, and then you have this moment in the beginning which you're not really in your body yet, and you're like, oh, should I move this? Should I move that? How does it look? Am I doing it right? Blah 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 blah. And then
totally,
there is this moment
totally.
in which you like let go of that shit and you let your body just do its thing. And then, yeah, it's what you said is just continuing from there.
Yeah, yeah. There's this threshold of letting go of commands. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Surrender and acceptance and letting go became such an integral part of my life and my journey in a way that is incredibly transformative. Like really,
Mm.
if you would tell me let go of control or surrender to what is, or talk with me about these kind of things a few years ago, I would not be able to fully accept it. I still had so much in me that wanted to achieve, that wanted to get somewhere, that was buying into the illusion that I do have any control over where am I going, what is happening. Is it that is me living my life, that is me figuring it out, and not the other way
Mm.
around, life living me and figuring me out. What was the turning point for you that you were like, was it ever a turning point? Were you always like this um, in the perspective of surrender, or was it like a turning point in your life that you were like, shit, I'm not in control, and that's actually wonderful?
I think it's a constant process, because I would lie if I tell you that there was like a moment and now I don't control anymore. No, like, actually, even now I shared with you, there's a lot of shit happening in my life, and I can see the parts of, like, I mean, I want to control it still. So it's like I feel like it's a constant remembrance and awareness, and especially in moments that are really hard. That's like, okay, it's just a constant test into how much more can you trust. And that's not trusting anything or anyone. It's like, can you just trust life even when shit hits the fan? Can you just trust that everything happens at that moment, and that life is still holding you when you feel like everything has abandoned you? So it's like it's such a constant awareness to keep, because it's never going to be like, okay, now I'm enlightened, now I'm good. Like,
Yeah,
now I'm free from control. Now comes constantly. It's a machine that is inevitable. And yeah, I feel like there's been steps, there's been definitely steps in my life, almost like milestones, which is like, okay, I feel like we reached somewhere, but it's a never-ending story. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
definitely. And I love that you said remembrance, because it is what it is. It's not some new discovery. Rather, it feels like something you always had inside of you and you just remember. Like this deep inside of you, this like heart that is beating and is absolutely trusting and in full faith of what is and is just surrendered. This energy, this frequency is there all the time. And then sometimes we go out of it and something painful is happening, or like this relationship didn't work out, or something didn't behave in the way I expected them to behave, and I'm deeply hurt, or
mm,
things are not working out for me financially or otherwise. A parent that died, whatever, all these beautiful, painful things that are happening to all of us at some point in our
mm,
life. We forget a little bit. We buy into the illusion that, oh, it matters a lot, like this specific thing that is not working for me right now, it matters so much. And maybe I'm not being taken care of. Doesn't feel like it in this moment. And then we remember. It's a process of remembrance. What reminds you? What are the things that remind you? What are the things or practices or humans or, that remind you that you are taken care of, that you are being carried away?
So you've been breaking up right now, so I don't really know if you asked me something or if you were just sharing.
Can
Okay, I
you
just heard some words.
can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I asked what are some of the things that help you remember who you are, remember to surrender.
Actually, like, it's like every time that I can feel the helplessness in me, it's like every time I am obliged to be on my knees, um, is a portal for me for knowing that I have nothing to lose. Like there's nothing to lose. I'm not even in control of anything. So of course, like, and that's more of like on like, the helplessness always come with me when there is horrible things happening, or where it's difficult, or where you're overwhelmed by intensity in some sort. And then of course there's the opposite of that, which is like those ecstatic moments, just moment where everything dissolves. So yeah, it could be an orgasm, or it could be like a beautiful moment in your life, or just when you went through the threshold of embodiment and you're just dancing in ecstasy, and that nothing is wanted from you, like that nothing is, yeah, every time that I feel like nothing is wanted from me, and that I don't have to do anything, like, yeah, it just makes me relax. And I feel like the helplessness come with that, it's like every time that I feel like, well, I have nothing to do, like I can't do anything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very counterproductive to a lot of people because, at least in my experience, since this, what we're speaking about right now, became my living experience, I started speaking about mostly nothing but it, you know,
Mm,
and I see different reactions coming from people. And it's really interesting for me what is coming up and slowly figuring out better ways to articulate this very direct, very personal, very subjective experience of blissful powerlessness. And when I speak about it with people, a lot of times the first reaction is like terror or fear or, like what will happen? Like where would action come from? Like, and how would things happen? And I'm like, look, I mean, I can give you many examples, but maybe if we are speaking right now, let's look at me. I feel like I'm doing nothing, yet everything is being done. Sometimes I spend days in divine laziness doing absolutely nothing, yet things
mm,
are still happening, like, and sometimes inspiration comes and pushes me to, to do something and to embark on a project, but it feels like I'm being pushed, like I'm being moved, like I'm being carried, not like okay, I need this objective to happen, and now I'm going to do one, two, three, four, and all of that will happen. Um, and there is tremendous, tremendous freedom in that letting go
mm,
continuously. Like, oh, okay,
mm,
let me go again. Oh, this little bit, okay, let me go again. But what about let me go again? Like, um, and yeah, there, other than just, it's something that you cannot explain rationally in a way that is experiential. So I think
mm,
the best thing is to, hey, you know, is being in control makes you happy? Is being in control contributes to your sense of love and well-being and peace? The answer is never yes, like in this so far people understand, like need to be in control feels tense, feel dense, like you can feel it in your body. We talked about embodiment, you can feel it in your body. When you are in control, you are all your muscles are tense, it's in pain. And this letting go, this movement of like opening your fist and letting go and just like, oh, it feels good. It feels good. It's freeing. It's in your body. What's your
Mm.
experience with talking about this with people, with your clients, with your like, how do
Yeah, I
you,
almost wanted
yeah,
to bring like a concrete example and something that popped in my mind that
good, good, good.
constantly. I don't know if you, I don't know, but I am constantly asked about the way I relate and am I open, am I closed, like all those things. And I feel like that's a beautiful example because I always said in my relationships, do I have boundaries or not? That's a big talk, about boundaries. And I always say I don't have like I don't give any boundaries to my partner of any sort. And it's not because I am over jealousy or I'm over anything, it's like, but if I give any boundaries to my partner and is gonna do things or not gonna do things because of what we said, I will always doubt that he is here with me or he is doing what he's doing because he wants to do it. It's like, and that's like almost a trap. It's like I feel, maybe I'm going to speak for many people who recognize, but we want to give boundaries constantly so that we can control the reality and feel and create that safe place, which is a trap anyway. Even if you created the most safer environment, and it's not even almost just in relationship, I'm just taking that example because it comes all the time, but if I control anything in order to have a safe place, I'm always going to doubt that this is safe because I've created it, or is it because it's really, so yeah, just a practical one.
Yes, 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 yes. Which I would imagine, like I'm absolutely 100% full body fuck yes to this. But I think a lot of people, when they hear, oh, put no boundaries, the immediate thing that will come up is like, well, yeah, but I need sometimes in certain situations, I do need to keep myself safe. And I love that example because this fear, this fear of I'm not safe. Let's explore that for a second. What does it even mean? Not safe of what? What can happen to you? What is the worst that can happen to you? For a lot of people, that worst thing that could happen to you, if it's sexually or otherwise, happened to them. And some of them define themselves by that trauma for the rest of their life and live their entire life and every relationship they are having with that trauma, carrying it is like, as like an armor. And some people that I met, which I'm not speaking from my own experience, I'm just referring to mirrors that I see from other people, or people that I work with, people that I met over the years, lovers, women in my life. And there are other people that have experienced severe trauma in societal measurements, yet they are in absolute peace in front of it. They have forgiven completely. There is no resentment that they are holding towards this person. They even are thankful how far out that is. They are thankful for having been experiencing that pain because it puts them on a certain path, which leads them to where they are at today, which is more open, more able to trust in many different things that unfolded in their life just because that happened, you know? And so I think initially there is some resistance that I sense from people when I'm talking about exactly that, like the meaning of trauma and how we can let go of that and surrender to that, and perhaps getting into what you spoke about, having less to no boundaries because there's nothing to be afraid of. The worst case, you're going to learn something, um, and your body will know to protect you, and you have this innate intelligence inside of you, so you don't need to build this mind construct of boundaries, because it's just an illusion of control. Even if you put all the boundaries, there are still things that can happen to you and be painful, so there's no real control there. There's resistance coming to that, and I feel that it's helpful to speak about people's experiences that have experienced things that are painful and traumatic, and how they look at them today without defining themselves by those traumatic experiences, being able to look at them with peace, with acceptance, you know? What is your experience with that, with your life or people that you've worked with, people who have
Mm.
experienced trauma and were able to get to a place of peace and surrender and a full acceptance of the sacredness and the divinity in their pain and live a life of trust with less boundaries? You have examples of that?
It's a big topic, and the capacity of resilience is almost like a mystery. You know, it's like even when I was studying that as a psychologist, um, it wasn't we weren't able to really explain why some people with huge trauma had a capacity of resilience in almost an instant, and other people with way less um, trauma would just carry that all their life, you know. So I guess like it's not something that we can take lightly and that we can like generalize to people. um, as everyone, I'm a traumatized person. I feel like, you know, birth in itself is traumatizing, and coming into a world of duality is a trauma in itself, you know, for the part of us that knows that we are everything, like for the part of us that is not even human, coming into a human existence is traumatizing. And I feel like that then everything is an addition to that initial trauma, which is I was love. I was born love, and everything in this life just showed me that I am not the love that I was supposed to be. You know, that's like for me, that's the only trauma that exists. And then there is a variant of that take different shape or form. But trauma in itself is a place for me where you just like a part of you, a fractal of yourself, like split, your psyche is split, and in that place you are so alone, you feel so abandoned and alone that there is no hope for love anymore in there. And so that part that is splitted is always, you know, like trying and failing to come back to love. um, so that's how I explain trauma in general. But then like again, like the capacity of resilience, which is almost the capacity to open yourself, like to allow that fraction to be seen and met so that it can collapse. um, it's a mystery, you know. It's like it's a mystery. It's like always a place where you don't want to push people too much, because if you push people and they're not ready to let go of the identification of their trauma, because to me many people are just identified, it's another identification. So it's like, yeah, I am this survivor of cancer, you know, which it has been one of my identity for a long time, because I had cancer when I was 18. I am I don't know, a sexual abused child and whatever. So it's like it's an identity in which this part that doesn't know or doesn't remember that it's love is trying to seek love externally from that. So it's a rewarding of love through that place. And the fact is that yeah, if there is not the capacity to integrate that love as nothing that you need to be or do in order to become that love, then it's like just a constant wounding that repeats itself over and over again. And that's why, you know, when I was working in as a psychologist, you would see like often it's like one person that had a cancer once will have 3 or 4 of them. One woman that has been raped once will be raped like 5 times in their life, whereas other never. You know, so it's like trauma will attract more trauma, because as I said, if you take trauma as a place, as a fraction of love, so that empty place will just reproduce constantly and trying to validate that it doesn't deserve love.
Mm.
Yeah. Mm.
So what is the alternative in your view of trauma?
What is the alternative? Like it will depend. Like I think it's really depending on anyone, and it's to take anyone really individually in that path. If we're speaking about helping people into this, so um, it's it's like this edge between being there. You want to actually almost take the fraction in which you can invite that aloneness, this place where you feel totally alone, to actually emerge and let yourself be seen in that terror, because it's a place of terror where you feel totally abandoned. And in the same time, it's like it's edgy because you don't want the story of the trauma to start to come out and then just being validated into a victimhood. So it takes a lot of almost expertise to look into um, when it's the right time, where like when is the person really radically open in that moment where you can start to invite forth that part that feels totally terrified of anything. Yeah. So I'm not really being like clear. I'm not going to give you a 5-step came out of trauma,
There is
because I
no.
don't think that no,
I
there's
was
not.
asking less about 5 step, but more about. I mean, you mentioned identification with that trauma and what it entails and how it keeps repeating itself the more we identify with that trauma. So I'm asking, what is the alternative? Is this coming to a realization, coming to peace with the trauma that have been realizing? You mentioned it a little bit here and there, and maybe we can uh, emphasize a bit more about it. But acknowledgement of the part in you that recognize that that trauma that you have experienced and any other pain in your life is the same boundless, unconditional, omnipresent love taking a different form that is
Mm.
feels painful to you right now, but is still part of that bigger picture unfolding. Um, because that's you see that um, manifestation of acknowledgement helpful in facilitating acceptance and peace and disidentification with people's trauma.
Well, I always feel like there's two paths to anything, it's like there's always like a path where you just um go slower, and so like it's more of a feminine path, so you're gonna allow, like you're gonna be gentle, you're gonna just not push anything, like you're going to relax the body so that actually the body can let go of anything that needs to come out by itself. Or there's another path which is going to be a little bit more masculine and more pushy, which is like you're actually going to push until the person is going to vibrate the same amount, like that the body vibrates the same energy that it was vibrating when it was traumatized at the moment that the trauma occurred, so that there is a possibility for that energy to be freed. So it's
Mm.
like there's always
Maybe
two
it's
approach.
dance.
It's
Maybe it's the
like,
dance between them both, which is always the
yeah.
dance of these polarities, everything in existence. You have like yin yang, dark light, feminine, masculine, electric charges, minus plus, remembrance and forgetfulness, the sacredness and all that around us that is seemingly void of sacredness, at least in with
Mm,
what we can grasp with our senses. So that tension between these two, I feel, is also coming into play here. Like
mm,
you have this place in which, okay, I'm experiencing pain right now, and I'm letting it be, and I'm taking it slow, and I'm engaging in self-love and acceptance and compassion. And then there is also the part of which you move forward in order to not get into a place of which these traumas keep repeating because I'm just identifying with that and I'm allowing it to happen to me. But you're moving forward and like, okay, well, how do I want this life um, to be? How do I want this life to experience? What do I want to experience with men, for example, after experiencing such trauma or such? What kind of relationships I do believe that are possible and viable for me to experience? And so there
mm,
is this like dance between that feminine, masculine penetrative and surrendered, and like this. I don't know. I feel I'm experiencing my life in a very similar way on a day-to-day basis. Like sometimes it's like a move forward momentum, and a lot of times it's staying back and taking it slow and letting it happen. Um, yeah.
And also, like I want to add, and especially with the example that I give about like non boundaries, I'm known for that in my workshops. So I'm like, I don't want to speak about boundaries. Sometimes, and especially if there is a lot of trauma, it's actually really important to start knowing your no, your yes, what you want, what you don't want, so that then you can actually surrender into what arises, and not letting those almost needs define your reality to the point that you actually constantly feel unsafe. So it's like it's going further to going back again, it's like and I feel like life is always like this. I don't like to be certain of anything. It's just yeah, so I believe that it's important for many people to know what are their boundaries. But then it's like, don't stop there, because if you're going to start defining your world in the way that you want to define it, you lose almost the magic of it. You're just going to start controlling everything because you're fucking scared that anything could happen to you. And maybe that is the first step. If you're actually terrified, maybe that's the first step to re-empower yourself, having the power to define or to be heard in places where you were not heard, that you did not have anything to say, and you've been overpowered. So maybe that's just a step, but then like I think we already spoke about that. It's like, for me, it's like, okay, find your power, find your individuation, actually build your individuation, so that then you can let it go. Because if you let it go before you've built it, if like there's so much like people feeling, oh, I'm so humble, I don't want power. Fuck that. We all want power. When we feel from an individual standpoint, we want power, we want to be recognized, we want to feel that we're the best or whatever, and once you're on the top of it, then you can actually offer it, but if you offer it before, it doesn't stand for real. So yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Like if you lose your sense of self before you have developed one,
Mm.
that can be a very dangerous experience. It's like with psychedelics. I've heard people speak about how it can be harmful to, experience psychedelic trips when you are very young, maybe like 14, 15, 16, when your sense of self, the very one that in older ages we do everything in our power to let go of, but the very sense of self is not fully developed. Engaging in a psychedelic experience that is powerful and, killing your ego in many senses, killing that sense of self, when you don't have that sense of self yet, can be very disassociating and can be
Mm.
potentially harmful. And I think this
Mm.
analogy is very similar to here. Like people come to you, people come to me with, wanting to step into their power, wanting to experience life more fully. If you immediately take them to the path of surrender, and completely letting go to total powerlessness. I mean, surrender is always there, surrendering to where you're at and accepting where it is so you can step into your power. But you don't want to take them too much into powerlessness, not yet, before they have crystallized their
Totally.
power and stepped into it and actually experienced it in their life and like, oh, okay, I'm capable, I'm able. Good, beautiful, powerful relationships is a reality that is possible for me. Making money from what I love and not suffering in some stupid job is something that is possible for me. Experiencing joy and peace and love in my life is possible for me. Okay, now I can let go. Now I can let go of my need of control and boundaries and power and all of that. Yeah,
And if not, I would even add that if not, it will, like, because I see that so much. And it's like actually not being honest about the thirst of individuate, the thirst of being someone, it's like, And if that is not totally clear, or it's not totally in the light, it's just going to act in the shadow. So it's like, oh, I'm so humble, I'm so humble. But then, like, in the back, like, there's always like a thread in the shamanics that is trying to pull and have power in some ways,
Yeah, and you see it a lot in, certain shamanists and spiritual teachers that have stepped into their power and just kept stepping into their power forever and amplifying it and gaining more and more and more power out of this thirst. And although they might be very well, very spiritual, very, knowledgeable, very wise humans, they haven't let go the very power that they achieved spiritually in order for them to really be able to be of service, of beautiful service that is incoherent with the way things are, with the process that people need to go through, and not what you want to impose on them based on what serves you and your power. So yeah, I really resonate with that as well. So beautiful. I mean, I thought we were going to talk a lot about sexuality and intimacy, and we did, but somehow we talked about what we meant to talk about. I would imagine what is alive for both of us in our life right now.
Mm.
This is why I don't plan these calls too much. It's because this is exactly what I want to invoke. Um,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here. For people
You're
who wants to
welcome.
follow you, where should they do
You
it?
don't want to follow me at the moment. So, like I said, I'm going through something, which means that a lot of my stuff is down at the moment. So the only place where you can find me at the moment is Instagram. So yeah.
Good. I'm gonna leave your Instagram in the show notes, in the links. You're probably going to be able to see it on my socials as well. Yeah. Thank you for being here, Laura.
Sweet. Yeah, and thank you for the conversation. It was a pleasure, and yeah, pleasure to meet you more deeply also. And yeah, always to speak about those things, it's arousing.